So we're not going to talk about data exchange platform, although don't repeat to anyone, but this is also part of what we're doing. But we'd like to take you through concrete examples of what is usage-based insurance all about, what can connected car data bring to the insurance world, as a concrete example of things which are one element of this old data monetization concept. So I'm Cyril Zeller. I serve as Vice President Strategic Accounts for Scope Technology. And because we don't believe that ecosystem is a one-man show, because if you're the only one in your ecosystem, then it's a bit lonely take. We bring with our partners from DXC.
Yeah, so I'm Michael Aberg. I work for DXC in the Nordics and look after the insurance industry up there, along my colleagues around the world. We do DXC's merge between CSC and HP recently, April 3rd. Have about 6,000 clients worldwide, of which 2,000 of those are insurance clients, life and non-life. Of course, they're very concerned about autonomous driving, car riding, share riding, Uber and all that stuff, because most likely 30% of their book is coming from motor insurance. So they need to get their head around what does all that means. And for us to help them, assist them on that journey, we work together with Scope globally.
Okay, so just a couple of key figures about Scope. Some of you may not know who we are. We've been around since 1999, quite a while. We have businesses over 46 countries. We are live with insurance carriers through 11 live programs out there. Another 22, 25 ongoing POCs, and about 400,000 connected lines out there. Couple of slides to just repicture what we're talking about UBI. What's the magnitude of the phenomena? So Michael, do you want to just give us a little highlights about forecast?
Exactly, just a couple of slides to basically state what I stated before, that the insurance carriers are concerned about all this stuff that is going on. And they tend to say, oh, but does it really matter? Because well, why don't we just wait for the entire pool of cars will be connected anyway? All these aftermarket dongles, does it really matter? And of course it does, because until the time where all the cars are fully connected with accurate data, they need to do something about it. And the development of the UBI policies around the world are just explaining this one. So, of course, based on the assumptions about the future growth for connected cars, may that be aftermarket or from the OEMs, this is the projections of UBI-based policies going forward. They need to know, they need to do something about it, and the number speaks for themselves. And of course, just by nature, if you know how people are driving, maybe that could add to the accuracy of pricing of the policy, and even the accident reconstruction if you know if you've been speeding or not, as opposed to only knowing how old you are and where you live. So it's quite obvious. So this is just saying that it is growing, and they get that point, the insurance carriers. Next slide, please.
So this is pretty impressive rate. Does that take into account, when insurance carriers are interviewed, does that take into account the connected car phenomena?
Well, insurance companies are pretty old, mature industry. So they've been doing this for, I don't know, 300-400 years. So they say, oh, doesn't it go away? And we have the accuracy that we need anyway, based on claims history, age, zip code, make, model of the car. How much more accurate can it get by knowing when they go and how they go and time of day, time of week, all that stuff, braking, acceleration. But of course it does. And this is very hard to read, but it's only an illustrative slide to say that there are great differences around the world in this development of the UBI programs. So the top line is the UK, second one is US, Italy, France, and then you get all the smaller countries going downwards. These are 2015 numbers, I believe, from Autonomous. But it just shows that, so in Italy you do it for fraud, maybe you obviously do it for fraud reasons. In Italy, in the UK you do it for other reasons, aggregations. South Africa, different reasons. In the Nordics, you do it not for fraud, but for accuracy and customer loyalty. So there's a lot of small benefits that each of the insurance carriers can can hook their benefits into to pay for the service provider and even pay for the discount they sometimes need to provide to the policyholder. But they're very well aware that they need to do something about it for obvious reasons. 30% of their book is under scrutiny, so they need to understand how this thing works before all the cars are connected, and the Volkswagen, the BMWs of this world would just say, please insure these 200,000 cars based on how they drive. It's too late to say, okay, we get the zip codes, and it doesn't really work that way. But there are great differences, and that's exactly why we partner up with Scope to understand, as a global provider, that in each region we need to massage it into whatever makes it relevant for that region. So.
Okay, so a lot of initiatives we see there. Quite a few insurance companies getting there. We cannot say yet that UBI is mainstream, definitely not on a global base. They speak of UBI activities, as Michael said, in different regions for different reasons. Italy, UK, US, big tech right now we see in Asia and Latin America, but insurance company, we hear frequently about general concerns about UBI. And those concerns are about ROI, about book cannibalization, data privacy, data IP ownership. So what we're trying to do is share a few information on our experience to those different parameters. So program ROI, yes, that is an issue. And when some CFOs consider UBI as being another way to invest money to provide discount to my customers, the rationale may sound a bit odd. So what's important into telematics for insurance, or whatever the source of data, smartphone, aftermarket, connected vehicles, what really counts is that you need to take into account every parameter in the equation. So UBI is not a, I would say, revenue play. It's a benefit play. And if you don't take into account every element that plays a role in that ROI, then you're missing the point. And you have an impact on claim. Definitely, that's proven. You have a lot of literature available on the internet about that. You've got an impact on client loyalty. People subscribing a UBI program tend to stay longer than average customers. You do have, right from the beginning, a positive selection impact. So even if we all tend to think that we are a super good driver, somewhere in the corner of our mind, we know that if we're driving like young Frenchmen, I'm French, maybe UBI is not exactly for us. So insurance companies that went for those UBI programs know that the average risk of the people subscribing such a program is lower than the traditional book. And that, not only that, we also see that with the quality of the performance criteria and the prevention and the apps and all the information that you share with your customers in order to improve their driving skills and behaviors, you will also have year after year an ongoing effect on the claim frequency. Book cannibalization is something that we also hear. Yes, but like what? If my own customers, which are, charge 600 euros today, because they are a good driver, we only charge 550 or 5, or even, some UBI programs goes up to 40% discount. What's the idea? So first of all, there's very, very few people to doubt that cars will be connected. Agreed. Then there's very few people to question the fact that connected vehicles will seriously reshape the auto insurance industry. Right. So the question for an insurance carrier is not so much about, is it cannibalizing my book, or is it something for me, or do I have pioneers' genes enough to go through that exotic path, but this is something that is happening. What do you do about it? Do you do your math? Do you do your homework? Or are you simply waiting that 50% of cars out there will be connected, and then you wake up and say, hey, what do I do about it? Data privacy was a recurring topic of concern. When I say was, is because on almost all the studies that you have available, data privacy came from level 2, level 3 topic of concerns down to 15, 17. And the more those UBI programs address young drivers or millennials, you know, people just sharing their lives on social networks are less concerned about data privacy, and definitely not when the potential behind is money saving and safety. Data IP ownership, that's a very important topic. And we have, as a technology provider, to be extremely flexible and to different legislations in different countries. We know very well that the European Commission is very involved in who owns telematic data. And also, we do believe that IP ownership about driving scores and things like that should be the sole property of the insurance company. Now, behind the general and the primary concerns, you have like key benefits of UBI. UBI is about not only pricing, as I said, but about claims, about client loyalty. So pricing is really an ingredient of the equation, whereas basically the idea is to provide a discount which is less important than the reduction of claim you would have on a particular customer. So the idea really of UBI is to change the paradigm of the mutualization of insurance in some ways, whereas you're not charging someone because of the group of individual he is in and with a statistical approach, but you're targeting someone and pricing him according to what he really is, no matter the group he is in. And because not all young drivers are reckless drivers, because not all women drive less than men, you want to incentive people and just price them with a fair price. Claims, as we said, definitely, I have one slide later, but the impact on the claim frequency of UBI is absolutely huge. Some insurance companies are saying, after UBI, we have a 55, a 60, 63% increase of claims. This is huge money we're talking about. Client loyalty for the same reason. We all know that client acquisition has a cost, and we often see a average contract duration which is 15–20% higher with UBI customers. This exercise to share with you how deep we can go into the prediction of those claim frequency. So this is a live example of an insurance company in South Africa. Those guys conducted 4 years comparative studies of what is my actuarial modeling without telematic data doing for me, as opposed to an actuarial model including behavioral data. So not to spend too much time on this, you have just a score distribution, and the red line shows the actual claim frequency, okay? So first statement, we see that the score makes actually sense because the higher the score is, then the lower the claim is. So there is a strong correlation between the score and the claim frequency. Then when we look at the orange line, again, no surprise for any insurance carriers, we see that we have a tendency, they have a tendency to overcharge the good risk and undercharge the high risk. Now what the green line shows is that after 4 years of tuning and setting the right formula, we can have the underwriting logic which is absolutely matching the real claim frequency. So this is for the sake of the exercise. Probably the idea of any insurance company would be actually to have a pricing indication which is somewhere between here and somewhere between there. And because of the prevention, actually push the low scores, i.e. the high risk, to the right-hand side of this chart. This is the figures that I was talking about. So again, not us talking. 3 British insurance companies, Co-op, Insure the Box, Young Marmalade, sharing information about the decrease in frequency and losses they had after UBI. And you see the figures are quite impressive. Well, I think they are. Okay, this is also to illustrate what I was talking about, which is key to actually take into account every ingredient of what telematics can bring for an insurance company. So this exercise is taken over, so those are real figures, and this is taken over the complete lifetime of a policy. And you see that you have an impact on positive selection, then you've got the driver behavior improvement. Obviously, you have the discount that you give because of UBI, then you've got the cost of the telematic solution. By the way, this is what every single of our insurance customer is looking at decreasing because of connected car data. So we need you guys on board to make that ROI better. Adjudication cost, because of the automation of processes, is also improved, and the client loyalty. So you see that on this very basic exercise, you come from somewhere below 200 euros profit over the lifetime to over 300. We're not talking marginal things here. Very quickly on ecosystem, because this is what we're getting at. So it's not a just single application play. We're into ecosystem, data exchange. I said I wouldn't mention that, but I do. Where we want to build different stakeholders into that ecosystem to optimize the ROI and bring benefit to all the parties involved. So when you have a dongle, or actually when you have a smartphone today, nobody thinks that having a smartphone only for one application, right? I have a smartphone and I'm using my smartphone. This is the difference between cell phones and smartphones, right? So I have a smartphone and I use my smartphone for as many applications as apps are available. It's a bit similar in telematics. You have a dongle or you have a connected vehicle. You want to make sure that every single service that makes sense for the driver and eventually the passengers are actually possible to bring on board into that ecosystem of application. So this example is just an ecosystem, symbiotic ecosystem between aftermarket and insurance company, whereas both stakeholders can generate the customer, both stakeholders can own the customer depending on who brought it on board, but both stakeholders can generate revenue and optimize the client experience. And for that reason...
And now, yeah, we do have an exchange because we work with partners. We have 250 partners worldwide that we deal with, so we have limited IP ourselves, but we make sure that our clients are being orchestrated through our advice in the patchwork of solutions out there. And therefore, as Scope has not yet conquered the entire world of connected cars, and you are device agnostic for your platforms that the actuarial actually use, we don't care if it's a smartphone, if it's your devices, or if it's embedded devices. We take the data flow, because that's what we hear from the insurance carriers, that these dongles, they tend to disappear and we don't know what to do with them. And we give the discount and the dongle disappears, so we'll just wait for the embedded devices to arrive. And that's when we say it's too late, or that's going to probably take a few years. For those data will be ultimately aligned and scrubbed and made relevant and valuable to you for your scoring and for your premium accuracy. So that's why we've launched this UBIX data exchange together with Milliman, who's an actuarial services provider who can also speak the secret language of actuarial, and Scope, the technical service provider, and ourselves, who are the system integrators, to make sure that all the core systems are related to this data exchange. Of course, an exchange is worth nothing if you don't have providers and buyers, if you like. So it's in the early stages, but together with Scope, we are speaking to some OEMs about providing data. And of course, there's going to be room for more than one data exchange going forward. But that's the reason why we have launched this exchange.
So to wrap up with the time, 12 seconds, pretty good. So we understand that car OEMs will not necessarily license their data to 200 different companies. If you want to know more about us, please visit on our booth. We want to make sure that we provide easy time to market, good experience, and actually a flexible technology that serves your own strategies. And that's the reason why we took the responsibility to aim at bringing the best of all worlds, big actuarial firm, DXC, and ourselves. Just a glimpse on our platform. So those are our UBI platforms. Just know we're not providing a driving score out of a magic box. We do provide an actuarial platform open to actuaries, designed by actuaries for the insurance companies. We have, and please welcome on our booth to have this virtual reality accident reconstruction experience, but we're also into accident notification and reconstruction. Because we're talking about ecosystem, we do have fleet management solutions available, and last but not least, we do have now Aftermarket Platform providing with car dealerships, service chains, leasing companies, rental car, with full dashboard ability to have proactive actions with their customers when it comes to planning service scheduling, trouble code separating, and all sorts of communication, because you will know how much they drive, where they are, and eventually what kind of assistance they will need. Just as a wrap-up, one example of what we've been doing with Renault. So we launched in October 2016 during the Paris Motor Show, what we believe being the first UBI program based on connected car data. That first experience was originally launched on electric Zoe. We're deploying more models in 2018, and this is what the application looks like. Just to give you an idea about the timelines, between the time that we had a back-end-to-back-end integration and the time the full application was developed and the product released was less than 3 months. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm sure we have time for 1 or 2 questions, but if you want to know more, welcome on our booth. Thank you very much.